1. This encounter happened just a couple of hours ago and I'm still giggling about it. For some important context, in the Philippines, it's common for people to start small neighborhood shops that sell a variety of non-perishable goods, known as sari-sari stores, and sometimes even bakeries in their homes. You would frequently see houses that have their garages, yards, and even living rooms be converted into having little window counters facing the streets and sidewalks. Because of how common this practice is, many residential streets have at least 2 or 3 stores, and sometimes become popular enough that multiple vehicles tend to park or queue in the street to buy things from their favored stores. It's not really treated as much of a problem, aside from driveways being blocked, but a short, polite word with the customers tends to fix that pretty easily. So my aunt and I were heading back from a neighborhood event when we decided to get some bread from a nearby bakery that's fairly famous in our city. It's one of those aforementioned converted houses set in a tight residential street, so the street is normally packed. We were both hoping she'd be able to drop me off nearby while she loops around the street so I can buy stuff without contributing to the queue of cars normally present. But when we approached the street, to our surprise, the street looked absolutely empty, right next to the bakery itself, near the front of a house that seemed to have recently been converted into its own little sari-sari store. My aunt stopped at that spot, hazard lights and all, intending to hand me money before driving off, when things got a bit weird. In hindsight, that should have been a red flag since no pedestrians were passing by that exact spot, or even any customers on their little storefront. While I was stumbling over my own 2 feet to get out of the car, a man emerged from the little store and started berating my aunt to get off the street. Bewildered, I paused my exit while my aunt rolled down the window and yelled back at the man that she was only dropping me off to buy stuff. He wasn't satisfied and kept yelling even harder for us to leave, gesturing with a shoving motion as if the force of his vitriol would be enough to make our car disappear from his view. While he was flailing about, my aunt started to shoo me out of the car so she could get out faster to avoid getting into a fight with him. But it was a bit surreal watching a grown-ass man trying to bully a furious little old lady inside her car, and I admit I froze in shock, confusion, and a tiny bit of morbid curiosity while it happened. I did manage to snap out of my frozen state and scrambled out of the car after a few more choice words between them, but it was too late. The man yelled at someone inside, and suddenly an old lady started waddling her way out to the front of the store, yelling even harder than the man did. Immediately, she started screaming about how disrespectful we both were, and that we should know better than to park in front of her house, and that we were classless idiots for assuming we could park anywhere we wanted. She was definitely meaner than the man, and they both knew it. My aunt knew when to fold, and the moment the little old attack Karen started hollering, she immediately rolled up her window while my anxiety-ridden and thoroughly non-confrontational self tried to sneak behind the car into the bakery. But in a moment of absolutely awful timing, my aunt chose to pull the car away from the duo, exposing me to their line of vision. I froze on the spot again as they both started to berate me for blocking their house and disrespecting them and being an absolute idiot for having the gall to challenge them, and whatever other bile they could spew at me without cussing me out. I just sputtered out an apology out of reflex, saying that I just wanted to buy something, which seemed to enrage the Karen even more, to the point that her ears started to turn red. During her new rant accusing me of being worse than disrespectful on purpose, my brain suddenly remembered I had legs, and I booked it into the bakery itself, hoping she'd take the hint and leave. She seemed to take even more offense to that, and started yelling even louder as I entered the bakery storefront, and just to be safe, in case she was about to run after me, like she seemed raring to do, I hid in the corner behind some other customers until she stopped yelling, and my heart rate went back to normal about a minute after that. Thankfully, the workers didn't notice or didn't care about the whole fiasco outside, and prepared my order while I waited for my aunt to look back and rescue me from the safety of my pastry-producing haven. It didn't take too long, and by that point the bakery storefront was clear of vehicles, so I thought it was all over. Except when I looked outside the window, I saw the old lady and the man glaring intently at us from their store as we drove by, like our very presence offends them to their very cores. I started to giggle at the absurd sight, and my aunt asked me why I was laughing. Of course, I told her what I saw, and she snidely remarked, "Well, they're a bit crazy, aren't they? No wonder nobody was buying anything from their store." I laughed all the way home after she said that, and went to write this afterwards. 2. Please note that the following story contains themes of animal neglect. However, if you've listened to previous stories, you know they will not be too graphic, otherwise I wouldn't be doing this story. So I'm going to drop some context in order to have the story make a bit more sense. Me and my friend Jay were looking to rent an apartment together. After a dispute with multiple apartment complexes beforehand, my parents ended up buying a townhouse. They liked the city I was living in and decided to make an investment. At the same time, they would let us rent out the place for cheap in order to avoid sleazy college town landlords. They let Jay rent as well since they believed she was responsible and made a good impression on me. Now on to the story. We first moved in maybe over a year ago. We were really excited about having a nice private place. Everything was fine and we had no real problems. That is until she adopted her dog, Bella. Bella was a big hound dog. Now this is important because we lived in a small townhouse with a very limited yard. Not only that, the dog was surrendered by a previous family because she was excitable and dangerous around their very young child. Bella was not potty trained and knew no discipline, so she was very hard to control. We basically had to keep constant eye on her. Granted, Jay seemed to love Bella and took care of her. However, she never took the time to train Bella, so the bad behaviors only worsened. Poor Bella did not have the room to run around or play in our small backyard, so she was always so full of energy, which mostly became destructive. And again, she was a hound dog, so barked day in, day out. Flash forward about 7 months to winter, around Christmas time. Jay had broken up with her toxic boyfriend who lived in the house rent-free. A story for another time. He was a real piece of work. Relatively recently. She was going through her hoe phase, talking to a few dudes from Tinder. I didn't mind it as long as her awful ex didn't come back. She met a man, Dilbert, and right away he was a walking red flag. I swear this man threw a whole tantrum at this girl when she left a party before he got there, and he was mad she didn't stay just for him. I tried to tell Jay as a concerned friend who has seen a thing or two from crappy men that he was not good for her and that she should date a nice countryman who went out of his way to take care of her. Long story short, she ended up with Dilbert. As soon as they got together, she practically disappeared. She stopped staying the night at the house almost every night, no biggie, except for the fact that Bella was always left at the house. This mostly meant that I was the one to take care of her, every night. Now, I don't mind helping out, but I did not get a dog because I did not want that responsibility. Gradually, over the 2 to 3 weeks after dating Dilbert, she spent less and less time at the house. After the dog started to pee on the carpets more and more frequently, it started to become a major chore, especially since I started to get very sick, like concerning sick, and it was becoming too much to handle. I texted her saying, "Hey, you should take Bella with you to your boyfriend's place, or you guys can spend nights here, but I'm getting a lot of stress because I cannot handle this." I was brushed off. Another week goes by. Same stuff keeps happening. I'm getting sicker, more stressed. I sent another text, more direct, saying something like, "Hey, if you're gonna be away for so long, you need to take care of Bella. I am very stressed out, and she is not my dog." Jay calls me after this. I tell her she needs to take care of her. I get screamed at. As I am responding to her, she hangs up. Everything is tense at the house, and I start to become uncomfortable in my own home. At random times of the day, Jay and her boyfriend come by to let Bella out once a day and spend 10 to 25 minutes in the house. After visiting, they leave for the rest of the day. Bella now really only gets care from me, and I am becoming more and more enraged. Without me being there, Bella would not get taken care of for over 36 hours some days. And when I'm at work, she pees on the floor and tears things up. So after a long day at a minimum wage job, I can look forward to the messes I get to clean up. With things so tense in the house, I install a lock on my door. I mean, people I don't know are coming into my house at random times of the day, so I think that is fair. Guess not. Jay decided that in response, she will lock Bella in her room. I did not have a key to the room, and poor Bella had nobody to take care of her. Jay continued the same pattern of visits, and sooner or later, the whole house started to smell like dog pee. I started getting my parents, the landlords, involved. She eventually stopped paying rent, super pissed at the damage the dog caused and the general treatment Bella has had. My parents gave my friend one last opportunity to leave without issues. They gave her a termination for her lease that she can agree to, so that way she wouldn't have an eviction on her record. She never signed but agreed to move out as she was wanting to move in with her boyfriend anyways. But she stayed past the time limit my parents gave her, like weeks, and was practically just trying to use the house as a kennel for her dog. So after many warnings, they had to push for an eviction. With the massive amount of evidence stacked against her, she very quickly lost the case. Since she had moved out, we had to tear up floors because of how ruined the carpet was. I was finally able to relax and get back to my life, but the kicker is, really in an update, a friend that works with Jay is a friend of mine as well. At her party today, she filled me in on basically what happened after. Bella was given away. They now have 2 puppies instead. Apparently her boyfriend was cheating on her since the beginning. She lost the management position she had and was demoted. They have a joint bank account that has been scammed. She is sad she has no friends and no place to live. Basically, all the stuff everyone thought would have happened. Now I have cut out a lot of the awful things she has done to me and that dog for the sake of keeping this from being way too long. But trust me when I say she did this to herself. I am not sorry for her. I just hope that Bella gets that big yard she deserves. 3. The phone call went as follows. Good morning, Barkson's Vet Surgery. How can I help you? I'd like to speak with Jane about my dog. Unfortunately, she is in surgery at the moment. I can get her to call you back, or is there something I can help you with? No, I need to speak with Jane right now. My dog has finished its medication and it's still not better. Could I take your details so I can have a look at your account? The client gives their details. It looks as though the vet advised you to come back for another appointment to discuss this further if there was no improvement. I can offer you an appointment with her this afternoon. No, I want to speak to her right now. That's not possible. As I say, she is in surgery. I can get her to call you when she's done, but she will likely need to see your pet. I want to speak to her now. I will pop you on hold and I will go check with the vet to see what else we can offer. I go in the theater and explain the situation. Vet said she needs to see a pet and cannot prescribe anything else until she sees the pet due to the nature of the treatment. I go back to the client. Jane says she needs to see your pet, so I can offer you an appointment with her this afternoon. By the way, the vet was fully booked, but we were making time for this client, meaning staff either stay behind longer or the vet doesn't get much of a break. I just want to talk to her because I don't want to have to come in. Well, I can offer her to call you later, but she is currently in theater right now, so I can't get her to speak to you at this moment. Can you just hold the phone to her ear? What the actual? Is she serious? She literally has her hands inside a dog right now. I cannot hold the phone to her ear, and I cannot get her to talk to you right now. I'm usually not this blunt, but obviously I couldn't get through to her otherwise. How inappropriate she was being. Unfair, disrespectful, entitled, etc. Fine, get her to call me in 10 minutes, because I'm going out. She has other surgeries she must do and she needs to have a break. I can't say when she will call, but it will be today. That's not good enough. I can offer another vet to speak with you. The other vet couldn't do surgery at the time due to an injury they had. No, I want Jane. Then she will call when she can, or you can book an appointment to see her later today. Just get her to call me ASAP. In the end, she ended up needing an appointment, so had to come in anyway. I was just flabbergasted. Never have I ever been so blunt as she's in surgery, and it's not a good enough excuse for her. What do you guys think? Maybe I'm not seeing it from her perspective correctly. 4. Back then, I had a friend who I loved. She was a sweet, mild gal who used to paint watercolors. We met in art school. She was kind, gentle, and very meek. Her parents set her up with a gent who was about 7 to 9 years older. Friend of the family. Honestly, I could not take her boyfriend. He was rude, arrogant, and the total opposite of her. He had picked her up from classes many times. He was the snap snap, I'm late for something guy. She would scramble and get her stuff ready so he wouldn't have to wait. In short, I thought he was a jerk. He was the guy who parked in the fire zone with his MD plates. So important because he was a doctor. He never really talked to the classmates, just kind of made her rush out of class to get their stuff done. Unless he was outside just honking to get her attention, too important to come in and get her. I called him Dr. Ick. My friends laughed. Sweet friend didn't. A few months into school, our married grown-up friends decided to have a dinner party. We all got an invite. Of course, Dr. Boyfriend was coming. So sweet friend and Dr. Ick come late. We were all seated at the table by the time they arrived. He was introduced to the room. The doctor reprimanded the host for not calling him Dr. What's-his-name. He wanted us to call him Doctor at the dinner table. Because he was a doctor. Did I mention he was a doctor? He was late because he had a doctor thing. Doctor? Doctor? Doctor! The host apologized, called him Dr. What's-his-name, and then pointed him to the 2 seats at the end of the table, since we had all been seated by now. The doctor said he would prefer to sit at the head of the table. After all, he was a doctor. He might be called out for an emergency during the dinner. The room got quiet. Too quiet. The clock ticked gently in the background, and I began to laugh. Not just any laughter, oh no. I broke into deep, hacking laughter of the condescending kind. You know, the big, ugly snort kind you see in movies, but pray your nose will never make in real life? Yeah. Snorts, chuckles, the wheezes, laughter. Ugly, funny laughter. It was absolutely absurd. He wasn't kidding either. He was with us for more than 5 minutes before he kicked the dude whose house we were in out of his chair at the head of the table, because he was a doctor. Well, after that, Dr. Ick turned purple from anger. What with me laughing at him at the dinner table and all, he was, wow, DEFCON 1 level angry. I can say honestly, I didn't blame the guy. I guess I would be pissed too if someone broke out into Joker-like laughter at my own existence, which, yes, I was very, very guilty of. So there I am, laughing at the table, when he starts lecturing me on how dumb I am, how he was a doctor, how dare I laugh at him, which, you bet, made me laugh louder. I'm shocked I didn't swallow my own tongue at this point, honestly. I was in tears, gasping for air, snorting like some sort of hyena in the desert. I fell off my chair. I was asked if I smoked pot before I came. I didn't. I was just shaking my head no as I snickered, unable to make words come out of my mouth. The laughter. I've been hit by Joker juice. Oh, thank God YouTube was not a thing yet. Because this was legendary meme stuff. I just thought this guy was such a jerk. This had to be some performance art thing. Like some form of reverse stand-up. Who asks the host to get out of their chair whose meal you are about to eat after showing up late in the first place? I just found it hysterical. Well, at this point, we were all laughing. I'm not proud. Most of the folks in the room were just outright laughing at me because it was just too funny not to. I mean, how can you not snicker at a grown man dying of laughter on the floor at this jerk? It was hilarious, very infectious, and you bet, all my fault. I guess me rolling on the floor begging for air was something the good doctor wasn't interested in, because he took my sweet friend and his Doc-ick asses out of that house, never to return again. About 20 minutes later, I composed myself. I swear, I was wiping away tears, the chortling stopped, and everyone got real quiet. Like, real quiet. Too quiet, even. Food on the table, wine glasses filled, the clock ticking in the background. And I say in a very calm voice, "That guy was a dickhead. Can you please pass the mashed potatoes?" Which started the laughter all over again. Best dinner party ever. My sweet friend had a dark side after all. Good for her. When she saw me that following Monday, she gave it to me with both barrels and a stick. I was insensitive. I was a jerk. I was a disgrace. I was an absolute subpar human and a rotten friend. All of which I could sort of agree with. Except for the subpar human bit, I mean. I might just be an extraordinary type human from not having my teeth explode out of my head from laughing so hard. Go me. Can that be a superpower? Well, to summarize, she wanted an apology. Not just to her, but Dr. Ick. He was coming to get her after class, and I would have to make a big production about it too. Bells, whistles, groveling, or she was done with me. The good doctor parked his car in the fire lane, strolled into our class, folded his arms over his chest, and waited for me to apologize. I, being the I that I am, walked right up to the prick and told him, "I'm sorry you're such an a-hole." And then I walked out of that class. He was furious. I just kept walking while laughing. Wow, you bet she was done with me after that. She made sure every class she took I was not in. She eventually married that turd too. Everyone in our little art group at school, except for us folks at the dinner party, had been invited to their big old doctor wedding. I heard it was a lovely event out in the Hamptons. Good for her. Hey, if Mrs. Dr. Ick reads this, I hope it all worked out well for you. Best wishes for a good life. I still think about this when the night's going sideways in my life. Makes me laugh. Also, Dr. Ick was a podiatrist. 5. So a little bit of background story. I was a 19-year-old male at the time. This happened roughly last year. I used to work in a call center where I would represent the newspaper of the United States. I liked my job, but two of the people who I used to work with thought the rules didn't apply to them. Sabrina and Hunter. Now, Hunter was a bit controlling. He would get angry if things didn't go his way. In fact, when I reapplied in January 2021 after my friend referred me to a job that was a ripoff, he threatened to fire me because I simply inquired where my paycheck would go. You see, I used to work at a company where the paycheck would come in the form of a check if you were not on direct deposit. So naturally, I inquire about my paycheck. He also called my breakup a blessing in disguise. He would get mad at me for not going to his church. So roughly in May or June 2021, it had been 3 months since I had broken up with my now ex-girlfriend. I was late walking one night. I originally lived in a small town, but due to family issues, I moved out of there and went 15 to 45 minutes south to another small town. I was just walking around when my phone blew up 3 times. I didn't hear it at first, as I had it on silent, and I was thinking about my relationship that could have went better. When I pick up the phone, this is what my boss said.
Why have you been ignoring my calls? I called you 3 different times.
My phone was on silent, and I've been walking around for the past 30 minutes or so.
Well, I need you to take in a former co-worker. She's getting away from her ex.
But... The phone hangs up. I should mention that I was renting an apartment and my landlord was already upset with me. The heat throughout the winter roughly cost him $200. The heat was electric, and the windows were never sealed, and could not be modified because of them being in a historical part of the building. Yes, the building was old. My landlord bought it and renovated it. I tried to explain to my boss before he hung up that I couldn't take her in for a couple of reasons. The reason why I couldn't take her in was because the house technically didn't belong to the landlord fully. It technically belonged to the county. The county had the final say, and they paid the landlord a check of the rent that the tenants pay. The landlord agrees to take the utilities. Plus, it's also worth noting that I was just coming out of a depression, and the stove was a mess. This apartment I was renting was my landlord's favorite. You see, he put a lot of money into the apartment, more than any other apartment, and it looked super modern and super new, so he loved this one. Back to my coworker. She had quit a few weeks prior. The customer call center wasn't for her, and my boss thought she would be back. She never came back, but one day her boyfriend, ex back then, was supposedly being abusive. She packed up a few things and told him everything. When she got to my place, I urged her to go to the police, but she didn't. Her ex's mother ended up finding us at the community park that had a bandstand and told her son. Her son was already blowing up her phone, accusing her of running off with other guys. Then he wanted to know who I was. It was also worth noting that this man was mentally unstable and had a gun. I told my boss about it and how I couldn't keep her in my apartment for long. He kept arguing, and I told him he had a room he could spare, which he did. The reason why he didn't let her stay was because he was in love with a woman who was married. He was trying to actively win her over. My coworker did move out and wish me the best of luck. During her stay, however, she barely contributed to anything, meaning everything was out of my pocket. Good thing I had food stamps back then. As for my boss, he won't be bothering me anymore. The company I used to work for, the customer call center, had actually been sold. The overall manager was going to retire and sold the building to someone with the pre-named doctor. Everyone who used to work there now has to work remote from home. My boss hated remote work and was given a choice to take up a manager position of another call center, this one located in the southern part of the United States. As for the former co-worker, her and I don't speak. She used to bash the call center and did that before my boss rescued her. She was unapologetic when she bashed the company into the ground. She ended up getting a new job, but I saw her true colors when she said she was getting everyone who was important to her a Christmas present. I got nothing, even though I willingly violated my lease and its term of conditions for her to be safe from her now ex-boyfriend. I was technically not allowed anyone to stay at my apartment, and when they did, it was a maximum of 7 days. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Idiots in the Wild, episode 67. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, if you could please hit the like button. And you can do that at any point during the video if you're having a good time. Alright, let's see. We do have a birthday shout-out today, I believe we do. Yes, we do. And today's birthday shout-out goes to Alex, aka DevilChild666. And today, Alex is 46 years old. Yes, it is the 29th. Well, you say you listen every day, so I'm assuming and hoping you do hear this one, Alex. I hope you're having a good time today. Let's see, this is Wednesday, so you get to celebrate right through to 11:59 next Tuesday. I believe that would be acceptable. Oh, what the hell, why not? Since it's middle of the week, near the end of the month as well, you can celebrate right through to the following Friday. But don't tell anyone else I'll let you have extra days to celebrate. They'll be all wanting extra days for celebrate the birthday. So that means more cake. So I'd get a big cake and have a slice per day, just to kind of stretch it out. unless you want to get several smaller cakes, which would also work, and any tipple you might happen to enjoy. Okay, now before we go, we're going to sing Happy Birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Alex. Happy birthday to you. All right, and now before we go, we'll also have a Hell Freezer's question of the day. Today's question is, would you trust a robot to make you dinner? I'm saying this because lately I've been getting more into AI technology. Specifically, I've been playing about with AI image generators. Really fascinating. The really cool ones are still kind of behind locked doors or semi-locked doors. They'll be public eventually. But there's a couple out there that are less advanced, but improving all the time, that are available, that are free and available to publicly use. And they're very cool. I'm very fascinated by the technology. So, as we move on, it's only a matter of time before artificial intelligence gets better and better at doing things that humans could do exclusively. So, would you trust a robot to make you dinner? Like, write a recipe, set the meal, and actually cook it. Personally, yes, and I'm waiting eagerly for that day, but let me know what you think in a comment below. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.